Congress today sacked a plan to pass an auto industry bailout before Thanksgiving, but it doesn't mean a rescue package is entirely off the table. In our fourth story on the countdown, instead of handing the big three a big fat check, lawmakers gave them holiday homework. The CEOs of GM, Chrysler, and Ford spent 2 days on Capitol Hill painting a grim picture and warned that if they collapsed, millions of jobs would be lost. But dire predictions were not enough for Congress to draft legislation that would garner sufficient votes and get the president's signature. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid delivered the news at a press conference this afternoon.
Until we can see a plan where the auto industry is held accountable and a plan for viability on how they go into the future, until we see the plan, until they show us the plan, we cannot show them the money.
We want them to get their act together. We want them to come up with something. We are here to help. We're not against the auto industry. We want to help those people keep those jobs.
The plan referred to by Pelosi is due December the 2nd. And if a resulting bill calls for using money that's already been appropriated, President Bush is expected to sign it. As for those jobs referred to by Reid, according to some estimates, if just one of the automakers went bankrupt, 2.5 million people could be out of work. Speaking of which, the Labor Department reported today that the number of first-time jobless claims has now soared to the highest level since 1992. This while the number of people receiving benefits rose to approximately 4 million, the most since 1982. The White House reacted to the awful news by releasing a statement indicating that President Bush will support legislation to extend those jobless benefits. But that news was of little consolation today to an already battered stock market. In a late-day sell-off, the Dow plunged by 444 points, closing at 7,552. Let's bring in former Goldman Sachs investment banker and the author of Obamonomics, How Bottom-Up Economic Prosperity Will Replace Trickle-Down Economics, John Talbot. And John, thanks for joining us.
Hey, David, I had a quick question. Those turkeys that Sarah Palin pardoned, one of them wasn't Ted Stevens, was it?
Oh, we'll show you later in the show. Trust me.
Okay.
In the wake of the bailout for the financial industry, how bad is the conundrum in terms of throwing money at the automakers?
Well, it's serious. I mean, the entire economy is serious, and one of our worst industry for decades has been the automotive industry. Right now, they're hemorrhaging cash. They're losing about $25 billion a quarter. So if we're talking about a $25 billion bridge loan from the U.S. taxpayer, it's a bridge to nowhere. And once again, just like the bailout of Wall Street, we're talking about coming in with taxpayer money before we do any type of restructuring. The debt investors here, the creditors to these companies that took the debt investment and a risk and garnered an unusual return for years and decades, are being let off scot-free without taking a single haircut. And finally, this is the worst management in the world, as Keith Olbermann might say. I mean, these are the guys that were against airbags. They were against the introduction of seatbelts. They were against mile per gallon standards. They were against the Clean Air Act. My God, when they introduced hybrids, where did they introduce hybrids? They introduced it to the Cadillac Escalade and the Yukon, driving their miles per gallon north of 9 miles per gallon.
And yet it's sort of become conventional wisdom that a bailout is critical to the survival of the industry. Why do you believe that is short-sighted?
I think people misunderstand what bankruptcy is all about. I think, especially Congress, I think, misunderstands it. I think they think if a company goes bankrupt, all the employees are let go and the assets are sold. That's not typically what happens in bankruptcy. What happens in bankruptcy is the creditors take a significant hit, and that reconstitutes the company, and then you restructure. And so all of these industries, including banking, including investment banking, and now the auto industry, they need to go into a formal bankruptcy process. The government can accelerate it a bit, and all of the participants and the stakeholders can take a bit of a haircut. We can get employees from the UAW might not come out of the deal making $65 an hour, but they'll definitely be earning a decent wage. Retirees may not have $4,200 a month pensions, but they'll be taken care of, and their health care benefits will be taken care of Medicare. But these managements needs to cut out their big bonuses and their expensive trips, and the shareholders they need to take a significant hit, as do the creditors.
But what about the argument that if we let the automakers head towards bankruptcy, we are essentially inviting the Chinese to buy one of the big three? And would that be such a wise development?
Well, I don't think anybody's going to buy one of these three companies. I mean, these three companies have demonstrated that the only thing they know how to do are make $20,000 pickups and sell them for $65,000 and sell $30,000 SUVs for $55,000. That game's over. If you've looked at the ads recently, they're offering $25,000 and $30,000 discount on their big cars, and their overhead is so large, they've never made $1 on a small car. So I think it's an insult to the Chinese to say that they might be interested here. And if they were, God bless them. Remember when we were afraid of Japanese ownership of American car companies? Well, now a good many, hundreds of thousands of Americans make a living at Honda plants and Toyota plants all over the South and Midwest.
John Talbot, author of Obamonomics. John, many thanks. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, David.